The Spade Kingdom Saga is the most recent story arc to have concluded in Black Clover. It's comprised of two separate halves, the first being the struggle for the Heart Kingdom, beginning with Chapter 229 after the 6-month time skip, and ending with Chapter 260 following the abduction of Magic Knight Captains Vanjas and Yami, while the second half is the raid on the Spade Kingdom, which stretches all the way from 261, where Asta meets Noct for the first time, all the way to the most recent chapter, 331, which was the aftermath to the battle against the King of Devils, Lucifero. Most people consider these to be two separate arcs, especially because, the whole situation surrounding the anime right now, but I mean, each of them have the same main antagonist in the end, It's almost like how some people consider the Namek arc and the Frieza arc two different things, even though it's really just one long Namek saga, right? For now, I'ma just consider this as one large arc with 2 acts. In total, that's 103 chapters long, 11 manga volumes including one that hasn't even been published yet, making it the longest arc in the entirety of Black Clover. That is, if you're not counting everything from the assault on the world capital all the way to the reincarnation as one long Eye of the Midnight Sun saga, which I guess you could, but anyways, semantics. Now that everything's all said and done, I could call this Black Clover's best arc yet. It's magnum opus, if you will. At least, it almost was. I was going crazy on my reactions to these chapters in recent months. Here comes Nocel with the Mercury magic. He got a bunch of spear. Wait! Oh no! Lucifero just utterly blitzed. Yo, yo. Link to that playlist in the description below. Check it out. But was it actually as crazy and as exciting as my reactions while reading it made it seem? I don't know. Let's dig into it.
All of this is for the glory of the Spade Kingdom.
Now, I have a whole host of positives and negatives that I've gathered about this arc, but before we get into that, I just want to give a quick summary of the arc for, anybody that might have forgotten certain key moments. Maybe you haven't read it at all and you're just trying to see what all the hype is about, or because maybe you're like me and just really enjoy paraphrases. I think this goes without saying, but spoiler warning, obviously. The story begins with all of the mages after training in the Heart Kingdom for 6 months, saving a bunch of prisoners from having their magic stolen from them inside of a Spade Kingdom fortress. And I say all of the mages, but really I just mean Asta. Asta literally just cuts down the entire fortress, flexing 6 months of training and saving everyone. Through this though, Asta and his friends acquire information on the Dark Triad, a group made up of 3 siblings currently ruling over the Spade Kingdom with an iron fist, on a mission to conquer every other kingdom in the world, also being the reason behind the Queen of the Heart Kingdom's curse, which was the initial reason for training and forming an alliance between the Heart Kingdom and the Clover Kingdom in the first place, at the conclusion of the previous arc. Around this same time, Yuno, following his promotion to Vice Captain of the Golden Dawn, learns of how he is actually the Prince of the Spade Kingdom's royal family, before they were taken over by the Dark Triad, that is. And while still trying to process this revelation in his head, the Dark Triad then decides to ambush the Clover Kingdom. Xenon, one of the Triad, directly attacks the Golden Dawn headquarters, abducting their captain and leaving half of the entire brigade dead. Another one of the siblings, Dante, attacks the Black Bull's hideout, which ends in his defeat, fortunately at the hands of Asta and Yami, if only just barely, but in the end, Xenon shows up to save his brother's life and abduct Yami as well. Now, of course, being weakened and unable to defend himself from the previous battle. The final sibling, Vonica, instead attacks the Heart Kingdom with an army of her dark disciples, and despite Noelle and some of the other Magic Knights pushing her back, still ends in their defeat, and with Vonica taking the Queen Lilopechika hostage. Following this crushing defeat, the Magic Knights would, of course, enact their revenge, but not before getting a little bit stronger first. This is the in-between section of this entire saga, where we switch from one act to the next, where we get introduced to Noct, the Black Bull's vice captain, the ultimate goal of the Dark Triad, the Tree of Qlipoth, where we learn more about devil hosting and what that entails, and also where we learn more about Asta's mother as well. A Magic Knight super team is then formed, and after a few days of training, they head to the Dark Triad's hideout. This super team is then split into teams of 3, to each challenge a member of the Dark Triad individually, while Merleona stays on the outside and dukes it out with an ancient demon, summoned by Xenon as an extra measure of defense. One member of each team stayed behind to deal with all the smaller fodder enemies, while Jack and Noct squared off with Dante, Charlotte and Rill faced Vonica, and Longris and Yuno confronted Xenon, for obvious reasons there. And things were going relatively well until Morris, a scientist backing the Dark Triad, reveals himself to also be a devil host and speeds up the gates to the underworld opening. This forced Noct to have to split from Jack in order to fend off Lilith and Nama, two high-class devils from the underworld who appeared after the first gates began to open. Elsewhere, other lower-ranking devils began rampaging throughout the Spade Kingdom, while another ancient demon attacked the Clover Kingdom. But this was all taken care of by Asta's friends post-training with the elves, and Asta himself after finishing his devil training. The Dark Triad, though, took advantage of the gates to the underworld opening by unleashing their full power and pushing back against the protagonist, while Noct stalled the Lilith and Nama duo by himself. Just before things got too bad, though, the other Magic Knights came to back them up. Magna and Zora came to the aid of Jack in one of the greatest battles ever against Dante, while Asta arrived just in time to save Noct's life. Noelle and Gaja came to back up Charlotte and Rill against Vonica and the now cursed berserker Lolopechica. Vonica's defeat, though, would lead to the emergence of her devil, Megicula, and after much struggling, as well as clutch saves from Asta and Nozel, Noelle managed to defeat her, leaving Xenon as the final Dark Triad member standing. Through clever counter-spatial magic, as well as Yuno awakening to his dormant star magic, the team of He, Longris, and Finral eventually defeated Xenon. However, the opening of the gates to the underworld still would not cease. Morris, the Diamond Kingdom scientist that I had mentioned before, had now acquired the supreme devil powers of Lucifero, the same devil that inhabited Dante, which allowed for his modification magic to continue altering things and speed up the opening to the underworld even more. This is where the Black Bulls would finally reassemble as a team, challenge Morris, which didn't last long, and attempt to finally save Yami and Vengeance, that is, until another underworld gate opened, allowing for Lucifero to now finesse his way into manifesting, sort of, as this giant abomination of a bunch of lower-ranking devils all merged together. Through the combined effort of the entire Black Bulls brigade, though, this monster would be vanquished, but by this point, unfortunately, enough time had already passed and Lucifero was able to re-manifest, now this time in his actual body, and with another Supreme Devil accompanying him, known as Andromelech. After flexing his supreme power and mowing down the entire Black Bulls, Yuno, and every single one of the other Magic Knight squad captains, including even a returning to battle Yami, all seemed lost. That is, until a heart-to-heart between Asta and Libe occurred, creating a stronger bond between the two and a stronger devil union in return. In the end, the team of Asta, Yuno, Noct, and Yami successfully defeated the King of Devils, Lucifero, and finally stopped the underworld from opening, saving the Spade Kingdom from tyranny and saving all of the other kingdoms as well, while Andromelech took Lucifero's heart for himself and retreated into the shadows for the moment without fighting anyone at all. Yuno eventually got the chance to meet his biological parents, and the status quo had finally returned, for the most part at least. I'll start with the positives I have, and man, I think without a doubt, the best part of this arc is Yuno's character arc. Of course, Asta is the main character and he was all over this arc, but from the very beginning, man, a lot of focus is placed on Yuno here. This is where I think Yuno's character finally arrives, not just from a lore or a power aspect, even though finally learning about his origin and lineage was fascinating, and star magic is freaking cool, but as a personality, you know? For all the people out there that dislike Yuno for how generic and vanilla his character is for most of the story, to be fair, this arc, I believe, addresses all of those critiques. We've seen Yuno come alive in battle before, like, against the elves, for example, after finding out that he was technically a reincarnation of Lick's son. But seeing such visceral reactions like these from Yuno after taking heavy losses in this arc, not once but twice, it just added so many new wrinkles to his character that I think a lot of people have been yearning for years. It's this level of vulnerability and introspection that made so many other characters in Black Clover fan favorites. It's about time Yuno got some chinks in his plot armor, His battle against Xenon is my favorite fight in this entire arc. Xenon is essentially Yuno from an alternate timeline if he'd let his need to be the strongest consume every other aspect of his life. Seeing Yuno face off physically and psychologically against a much colder, much more dehumanized version of himself not only exposed how self-conscious Yuno can actually be, even while pretty much being a child of prophecy, but also that he's a lot more like Asta than I think any of us reading ever realized. Again, mostly because this is the first time we've ever seen his character with this much transparency.
It isn't that you're weak. I'm just that much better.
Bringing up Xenon actually leads me to my next positive takeaway, which is the Dark Triad are now my favorite villains in all of Black Clover. Dante is unquestionably my least favorite of the three. I think I can say that confidently, but even he still creates some great dialogue moments with his opponents whenever he lets his superiority complex go out of control.
Yami, my friend, believe me, this is only the beginning of what's in store. You're going to open up a brand new world for me soon.
Stop it, man. You're creeping me out.
Yeah, some people might just write them off as Eye of the Midnight Sun, or not them, the Third Eye 2.0. But first, in my opinion, each of the Dark Triad have way more charisma. And second, the Third Eye were less villains and more antagonistic forces, right? Veto, Raya, and Fano were more just tools of destruction used by Patri, sometimes against their will, like puppets, you know? The Dark Triad, though, are just straight up evil, wanting to commit evil crimes for evil's sake and take over the world using devil magic because, I mean, that's what their family have been trying to accomplish for years. A lot of people stand by Patri/Licht being the best villain in the series, and I guess to each their own in that case, but personally, I'll just always love the sinister, diabolical, ruthless aspects of the Dark Triad as villains, you know? Just because that's who they are and not because of some huge, centuries-long misunderstanding. The last major positive I have, it's that Yuki Tabata never forgets to let other characters shine, man. Despite most of the arc being about Asta's and Yuno's lineage, they aren't even close to being the only people that received more backstory or power-ups in this arc. That made sense. Tabata's always been good with giving the side character something to do, right? In this arc, he just snapped, in my opinion. Nox's backstory alone, telling the story of how he lost his brother to a powerful devil, only after just discovering his purpose in the world through studying forbidden magic, after constantly getting overshadowed by his brother's popularity as a magic knight. Man, it was enough for me. But then Xenon of the Dark Triad also has a phenomenal flashback. The Libe flashback with Asta's mom was incredible. Mother of the Year, let me tell you. Nozel gets an incredibly heart-wrenching flashback involving the truth behind his and Noelle's mom, Ashier, and the curse Megicula pit on their family. Even Yami gets another flashback showing how the Black Bulls as a brigade was formed. Then on top of all of this, so many other people get mini flashbacks that turn into insane power-ups that totally don't feel like ass pulls at all, and aren't even actually power-ups in some cases, just creative techniques that were developed so certain people can keep pace with other characters that just continue to get more broken as the story continues. Magna, Gordon, Henry, Zora, Sekre, Jack, Charlotte, Rill, etc., man. They all get things to do that do not feel even remotely forced or unearned. Since we're talking about power-ups at the moment, I have to just real quick address, it's my first major negative, and if it makes you feel any better, it doesn't necessarily apply to one character in particular. I do not like how quickly we all just moved on from true magic to ultimate magic. The explanation of magic stages back at the beginning of the arc in the Heart Kingdom is fine. You know, it feels a little bit out of nowhere when it gets dropped on us, but I won't lie, it does still provide a pretty solid hierarchy for the levels of mage that there can be and how anybody's power still has hard limits on it, regardless if they're a commoner or of royal blood, depending on the type of magic that they have. It's certainly a lot less messy than how power levels were introduced in Seven Deadly Sins, for example, but the less spoken about that series, the better. Honestly, it's just unfortunate that we only ever got to see any of these true magic spells once in the battle against Vonica. By the time we actually get to the raid on the Spade Kingdom Castle, these one or two spells that we get to see from everyone who trained in the Heart Kingdom are pretty much useless now in the battle against the devils. By this point, if it isn't an ultimate magic spell, you're honestly just wasting your mana. It's not doing anything. Credit to Tabata, I guess, because true magic did still have some type of utility for the short period that it was relevant, like saving everyone from dying against Vonica the first time they fought, and also accelerating the process of training in ultimate magic, for example, but I don't know, man. I guess I just would have liked to see true magic breathe a little bit more before becoming almost completely irrelevant after just one battle, you know? And yeah, ultimate magic is more of just like an ultimate jutsu, an ultimate attack type of thing, right? But still, man, I don't know. Even though I still like the fact that everyone got power-ups and they all kind of made sense and they were explained in a pretty satisfying way, just the way true magic got stepped on by ultimate magic, I don't know, it just felt weird. My next negative point is a pretty popular one amongst Black Clover readers. The King of Devils, quote unquote, Lucifero. I really like Lucifero. In my reactions to the chapters, I dubbed him Woocifero because I just enjoyed him so much. Watching him utterly embarrass all of the most powerful characters in the series back to back effortlessly was honestly Madara spanking the entire Allied Shinobi forces levels of hype. However, his defeat was pretty underwhelming. It's the reason why I call him the quote-unquote King of Devils, you know? Asta and Libe crying into each other's arms for a power-up was awesome and heartwarming in the typical shonen sense, you know, friendship and all that. But still, to this day, I'm hoping Lucifero regenerates or something. Hopefully Andromelech took Lucifero's heart for a means of like reviving him or something, because yo, there's just no way Lucifero's been hyped up for this long and this is all we get of him. Come on, man. His manifestation wasn't complete, so he was only at about 50% capacity at the time of his defeat, which explains some of it. But I don't know, honestly, that kind of just makes it worse. Because if this is really all we get to see of Lucifero, the great supreme king of devils, like, we didn't even get to see him at full power. And that's honestly just leaving a lot on the table, especially after seeing what he was already capable of. I'm holding out hope. There are still other supreme devils that we've yet to see. Again, maybe Andromelech took Lucifero's heart because he has this grand evil plan to develop this super team army of supreme devils that invade the human world. But for now, I think we can all agree that Lucifero's defeat wasn't nearly as satisfying as it could have been, and honestly should have been, especially with the whole Lucida and Libe connection. Megicula too, but at least her appearance was more of a pleasant surprise, you know? Like a cherry on top of what was already a pretty cathartic battle between Noelle and Vonica. She wasn't nearly as hyped up as Lucifero was, that's all I'm saying. My last negative still has to do with Lucifero, but it's somewhat of a bigger issue, I guess, than just him. It permeates all throughout the arc, to be honest. Why didn't anyone die? Tabata gotta be sipping on that Oda juice, or, oh god, even worse, that Hiro Mashima juice? I mean, it's just like, come on, man. William is right there. He's right there. Vengeance's story was pretty much over. The Golden Dawn was already a major target for the Dark Triad. Half of the squad already got clapped. Yo, imagine Yuno, right, getting promoted to captain of the Golden Dawn at the end of the arc, keeping Longris as the vice captain like he always wanted, you know, for his ego, because Vengeance got sacrificed to the Tree of Clifa. It would have been a beautifully tragic story for Yuno. And I could say the same for Yami, Asta, and the Black Bulls too, but I mean, let's be real, nobody wants to see Yami die. Now, Noct, on the other hand, this guy was prepared to die, multiple times in fact. Him redeeming what happened to his brother by giving his own life to keep the world at peace would have been an excellent bow at the end of his story. But then again, he was just introduced, and he's also pretty popular like Yami. And Asta lecturing him about fighting until the end and never giving up was also pretty cool, not gonna lie. But Gaja though? Tabata, this one is just inexcusable. He was practically dead already after using his own life force for an ultimate lightning magic spell that didn't even work against Megicula, by the way. Poor Gaja. Then he gets back up to fight again in the final push against Megicula and a bunch of demons, which, sure, he had the help of Real's spell, which temporarily keeps people from dying and also increases their magic power on top of that, at the expense of feeling all the pain afterwards like some Zoro shit. But come on, man. Ultimate plant magic or not, Gaja should have been way too far gone from Mimosa's spell to heal him. I'm sorry. Vengeance, Yami, Noct, very popular characters, right? That everyone loves whenever they're on screen. But Gaja? There was really no reason to keep this man around. Sure, him confessing his love to Lolo Pechica at the end of the fight was wholesome as hell, but come on, man. Just imagine how much harder this moment would have hit if these were his final words and he was on his deathbed confessing his love. Oh, I'm starting to think I read too much seinen. All I'm saying is that for as ruthless as the Dark Triad was, and for as revered as the Supreme Devils were, somebody should have caught a body. Let Gaja live, whatever. I don't get it, but surely Lucifero has to pit somebody in the dirt, right? Right? This is like, I feel like Lucifero is Kaido and Wano, but yet nobody dies. Everybody is just fine. Happily ever after. I don't know, man. In conclusion, yeah, the Spade Kingdom arc was pretty excellent. If I had to give it a rating out of 10, I'd say it's a solid 8. It takes a lot of things from the previous arc structure-wise, but I think the character work Tabata does here makes up for that in spades. No pun intended. Somebody definitely should have died, and Lucifero deserves a better ending as a villain, but at least the entire cast got major upgrades both in power and in character motivation. I think it's a great follow-up to the mammoth of a story that was the Elf Reincarnation Saga, but it still doesn't surpass it, in my opinion. Specifically, that section starting at the invasion of the Eye of the Midnight Sun's hideout all the way to the end with the battle against Zagrid, that is still peak Black Clover for me, man. I still remember when Yuno first turned into an elf, bro. My jaw hit the floor. I think anybody that's like a Black Clover hater, or maybe have dropped the series because they were uninterested, should definitely give this arc a shot. It still has its flaws, obviously, but the highs of the arc are some of the highest highs of the entire story so far, if I'm being honest. The plot twist at the end was a painful cliffhanger. 2 months left to go, boys. I just think Black Clover's finally hit its stride as a series. I mean, it took 300 chapters, but hey, look, we made it. We got there in the end, you know what I'm saying? Better late than never. Let's just hope Tabata finishes off the story strong with whatever comes next in the final arc. I'm expecting it to be crazy. The fallout from this epic turf war between the four kingdoms and the living world is gonna be lit.
If it's me, I apologize. I'm just high, so sometimes I'll just emphasize. I'm just shy, so I really need to emphasize. After this performance, check my vitals, make sure that I'm still alive, 'cause I give it all.